What is going on, Sports Wars? We're here. We're live for Wednesday night against the spread. Looking forward ahead to all the games in the NFL and some big games in college football over the next week. Joined, as always, by this awesome crew on sportspicks.locals.com, including the great Robert Barnes. Robert, how you doing today?
Doing good. You know, we're still unbeaten. The last pick we gave out was 2 weeks ago was for the Saints. Either it was a push or a win, despite all the injuries that we didn't know about at the time we gave it out. So we the free picks here at Sports Picks still haven't lost. We'll see if that streak continues. Where we have 5 out of 6 winning weeks at sportspicks.locals.com. Got a bunch of picks up out there. It's still the most accessible, affordable, best value in all of handicapping at sportspicks.locals.com. And and to paraphrase Deion Sanders, if I'm not Sports Picks, what is Sports Picks? If I'm not swag, what is swag? So looking forward to what should be a fun week. Some big games on the board. Your Bears get the Thursday night game because apparently the NFL is a conspiracy to make night games horrendous this year. But
at least it's not Bears Broncos.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, Colts Broncos. Yeah, that's true. It could be worse. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it was a brutal last Thursday game. Some of these are, though. We've had a history of this in the NFL with these Thursday games, these short turnover games where sometimes the game plans aren't, as well developed as you would imagine there being. A lot of guys more banged up than they would normally be, and it resulted in one of the worst games we've watched in a long time, at least prime time in the NFL, but certainly. We've also got Cricket. What's up, Cricket? How you doing?
What's going on, brother? Just ready for an exciting week of college football, man. You doing okay?
I'm doing all right. You were telling us before that you're headed up for a big matchup this weekend, huh?
I am, man. I'll be in Knoxville for Tennessee, Alabama this weekend. Probably the most anticipated Tennessee-Alabama game in about 2 decades. So
that crowd is going to be absolutely insane. And
yes, sir. Looking forward to it.
It's almost a little disappointing that Alabama's not number 1, though. I will say, if they were number 1, it would just take things to another level.
Man, I was praying for them not to lose to Texas A&M last week. I was like, please don't let them come in mad, ready to go. I did not need them to lose that game.
They certainly got scared, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
But joining us again, Cody, what's up, man? We missed you on, I think, week 4. We missed you on week 4, but we're glad you're back.
Absolutely. Good to be here. Glad to be feeling a little bit better.
Hell yeah, man. It's always a good thing. I am still on the road in Nashville. If you guys saw, we did Monday Evening Quarterback when I was in the hotel. Still here. Going to head home Thursday, so tomorrow morning at some point. But we might as well hop right into it. Last week was an interesting week for sure. There were some interesting totals at play. But was there anything that really stood out to you, Robert, last week in talking about NFL? That was like, ooh, that did not go my way, or that was a shocking result?
Well, I mean, the bad beat came in college. I had Stanford on the money line. Looked like they were cashing in. There was 16 seconds left, something like that. Oregon State's on their own side of the ball. Backup quarterback in. Looks like the game is over. He throws up a pass that looks like it's going to be an easy pick. End of the game, finito. The ball goes through the cornerback's hands, somehow lands in the receiver's hands, and there's nobody else there. He runs right into the end zone. Oregon State wins. So, that was the bad beat of the week for me. The NFL games are interesting. I mean, the Ravens made some interesting choices. The Bengals made some interesting choices. The Red Rifleman was doing okay, I guess, for New Orleans and Seattle. I didn't have Seattle being a top 3 offense at this point in the league. This point, back-to-back crazy over games. So it was some interesting games to watch. In fact, I'll sneak peek what my pick of the week for the NFL will be. Free pick of the week will be another team that everybody's down on. They're down on their the $250 million quarterback. Didn't play well last week. In fact, made big mistakes in the red zone, especially against a pretty impoverished Colts offense without Jonathan Taylor and Matt Ryan looking a little old. The ice. Maybe he needs to be on ice. But I think Broncos may surprise some people. They may be my pick of the week that nobody else is picking. But I thought it was interesting week in the NFL. Some things are continuance. I mean, we got a big one this week. I mean, probably the game of the season that everybody's been looking forward to. And the Bills travel back to Kansas City to see if they can get revenge for last year's incredible, probably one of the greatest playoff, probably maybe arguably the greatest playoff game in NFL history. We'll see if we get a repeat this week.
Well, and the line for that's pretty interesting too. Last I looked, the Bills were favored by like a field goal or something, headed to Kansas City. So, and I don't even know if, looking at how the Bills have played every game, basically, except for that Miami game, tough to argue.
No. All I could say is, the cameramen are safer this week because Devonta Adams won't be running to their direction.
That is an interesting thing that could play a factor in it if what these lines are going to be for the Raiders. If Devonta Adams isn't out there, I think there's a significant difference in that Raiders offense, and sure looks like he could end up catching a suspension for that. The guy did file charges, and Devonta Adams was charged this morning for misdemeanor assault.
I don't see how, though, once you see that other angle, though. When you see that other angle, the guy walks right in front of him, and he didn't even extend his arms out,
Yeah.
He just kind of...
We talked about that earlier, man. He
looked like a massive LeBron James flop to me.
Yeah, it looks pretty set up, man. I gotta say, it's pretty. Yeah, I was going to say somebody looking for $1 somewhere.
I think that guy just was like just going somewhere, not really paying attention. He walked right in front of Devonta Adams. There's no doubt about it. I think there is a push there. I don't think it's just a run in. I think he reflexively puts his arms out and pushes. But I think I don't think there was any real intent to do any harm. I think he was just really fucking frustrated, to be honest with you.
That's fair.
But that guy also weighed like probably 150. And Devonta Adams he was going at a good clip. He wanted to get back to the locker room.
If he's frustrated with anybody, he ought to be frustrated with his head coach for not kicking an extra point to tie the game right there when it's down. I mean, I think Vegas, he might owe a big marker at a casino in Vegas or something. They're like, you're not going to tie right here. You go for 2, you win or you lose, but we're not giving them the extra 10 minutes to hit all these same game parlays and stuff.
Well, and then I'd be pretty pissed if my wide receiver just totally took me out, like my own wide receiver. Hunter Renfrow got off the line so quick that he beat Devonta Adams to the spot. But that certainly did not end well for the Raiders. But let's look ahead to the games that we have this week in the NFL. Starting off with that Thursday game, we talked about a little bit, probably another boring, I don't know about boring, but another bad Thursday night matchup. The Washington Commanders, the 1-4 Commanders, visit Soldier Field and the 2-3 Chicago Bears.
Yeah, the Commanders actually didn't look bad last week, even though they lost to the Titans. They actually, made a little bit of a run there. Bears are favored by, Bears are 1-point dogs at home. Not a lot of respect still for the Bears. But 3/4 of the cash is on the Bears. 2/3 of the tickets are on the Bears. So the public likes the Bears. Vegas doesn't. Money line's about even, about -110 either way. Total varying between 37 and 38, depending on where you get it. The public's hammering the under. I'm not sure. Is there any of any weather issues in Chicago that's Thursday night?
From what I saw, it's supposed to be clear in the 50s. So
yeah, so a little bit, it's interesting. I mean, I get it. People look at these two teams, they think they can't score because of Washington's been at times really atrocious offensively. They weren't quite as bad as they scored 17 last week. They're a little bit better than I think the score reflected in terms of their performance. So, they got Wentz going deep. And if they can get that happening, they can have a little bit of offense. I get why they're favored over the Bears is because they've shown a little bit of sign of life. The Bears very sporadically have shown signs of life. I probably don't have a strong lean on the game. It's interesting. The public likes the Bears and Vegas likes the Commanders. That's an interesting split. Hopefully it won't be as ugly a game as the Vegas seems to be predicting it will be.
Yeah, man, I think it's going to be pretty bad football to watch. I got to say, I'm going to lean toward the under right here. I know 37.5 is a low number, but these offenses are pretty bad, and I don't see any way they turn it around this week. I mean, it's going to be – we got to get somebody about this scheduling for these Thursday night primetime games because it's been pretty atrocious so far. You got any think about any fantasy stuff in this one, Cody? You looking at
not in this game, man. There's nobody worth looking at in that game that I'm worried about anyways.
Maybe a defense.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think when you do look at this game – Wentz and that Washington team can move the ball in spurts. They really can. They do have weapons. They have weapons at the wide receiver position that they can utilize. And we've seen at times, Gibson be able to be very effective if they can get him the ball with some space. But so it just depends. I kind of think it's going to be a bad matchup. What was the point total on this? Like 38 or something?
Yeah, I mean, basically they're predicting like 19-18. That's the kind of score.
Sounds pretty accurate. I don't know.
I feel like that's what we're going to see for sure.
Sounds pretty accurate.
I don't think there's a bet like the Monday night guy that bet that Kelsey would score, I think, 3 or more touchdowns, and Devonta Adams would score 2 or more touchdowns, and it was some like 10,000 to 1, whatever.
What a
bet!
He
cashed for that second Devonta Adams touchdown because Kelsey was just touchdown. He made a lot of fantasy keepers happy last week.
Man, he had 25 yards receiving and 4 touchdowns. But before that, the lowest yard total for 4 touchdowns in the game was 93 by Marvin Harrison. 7 catches, 25 yards, and 4 touchdowns. What a crazy stat line.
Imagine being the guy who gets like Travis Kelce 72.5 yards, the prop bet, and you look up and he's got 7 catches for 4 touchdowns.
I was that guy.
Yeah.
Oh,
I lost by half a point in my fantasy league because he only got 25 yards. I had Travis Kelce, and the other guy I was playing had Devonta Adams, and the yards ended up being the factor instead of the touchdowns. Despite the 4 touchdowns versus the 2 touchdowns, I still lost by half a point.
Rough.
Yeah, that's a rough world right there. But that is fantasy football. Let's move on to the next one. We got the 49ers who come off a very good looking performance from that offense. They're heading down to Atlanta to play. We'll see how they tackle Jimmy G. We'll see if they're allowed to actually tackle Jimmy Garoppolo. He's not Tom Brady, so they may be able to be a little rougher with him there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's going to be a hot topic after the Monday night game, compounding the issue. But 49ers going to Atlanta, back-to-back road games, crisscrossing the country. And they're 49ers favored by 5.5 after they cost Matt Rule his job last week and whoop it up on the Panthers. 2/3 of the tickets are on the 49ers. Almost 90% of the money line money is on the 49ers. The total at 44.5. So they're basically predicting like 25-19 kind of score for San Francisco against Atlanta. So there's not a lot of confidence in Atlanta's offense, even though Kyle Pitt's supposed to be back this week. And actually, they made a nice little fourth quarter run, but for that Tom Brady call, might have been able to, wrap it up with a win at Tampa. But the money's pretty even on the total at 44.5. I would say that I think I would lean towards the Dirty Birds in this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you here, man. I like the way these Falcons teams playing. They have no quit in them. Every game they fight for 4 quarters. They're doing some great things in the offense with Mariota. Kyle Pitts gets back. Maybe they can start getting him involved some. They're going to have to, I feel like, to really make that offense go. But there's just too much fight in this team, man. I think 5.5 at home is just too much right here. I feel like you got the West Coast, East Coast travel. So I'm going to lean with you here, and I'm going to lean toward Atlanta.
And Cody, one of the people we talked about as a good prospect for people to pick up on was Drake London early in the year, and he's starting to really shine. Cordell Patterson's out for a couple of weeks with his injury, but which takes away some creativity from that offense. But we saw him show up at times last week as well. Any other fantasy angles on this matchup?
Yeah, definitely with Atlanta. Kyle Pitts coming back is huge to watch. Whether he can come and be a difference maker, I think he can. And then, I really think Jeff Wilson over there in the 49ers is the top 10 running back this week. On top of that, I also think Deebo Samuel will have a good game, as well as George Kittle.
Somebody to keep an eye on too is Algier. That's with Cordell Patterson going to be out by the next month. Just kind of, I wouldn't recommend throwing him straight in your lineup, but he might be somebody you want to pick up if you got a spot to hold somebody and just kind of see how he does.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. This Falcons team has been competitive in basically every game. I don't think they're good, but I do think that the way they play lends themselves to be able to stay in games. And Marcus Mariota is doing far better than I expected. I figured he'd be injured already. I thought Marcus Mariota would already have a hammy or something like that, and soft muscle tissue kind of thing. But he's doing good down there. Next game, we've got the Patriots, who just blanked before what was one of the best offenses in the league with Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions. Blanking the Detroit Lions. They're heading to Cleveland to see if they can have their luck with Brownie the Elf over there in Cleveland.
Yeah, the rumor is Jones will be back for this game. I think he's listed as questionable last I checked. And that, I think, even though they play, Zappe played fine last week for New England, I think they're better off with Jones. The Browns are favored by anywhere from 2 to 3, depending on where you get it. Most of the money's coming in about 2/3 or so on New England because of how New England's recent performances, and doubts about the Browns because they keep finding ways to lose. Total of 43.5, so they're basically predicting a 23-20 win by Cleveland. I think that may be a little bit low on New England's total if Jones is back and they get some rhythm offensively. I don't think I have a strong feel for the strong side on this one. I don't think it's that far off. Whether Jones plays, I think, does make a difference because I'm not sure Zappe can continue to perform at a quality level. And he really didn't have to do a lot last week. They had, fumble returns for touchdowns and all kinds of other craziness take place in that Detroit game. So, but it'll be interesting. Cleveland needs a win. They've been blowing games. They need a win, especially at home, to keep Brownie the Elf happy.
Yeah, man, there's a lot of ugly games on this slate this weekend from a gambling standpoint. You got to be real careful where you dip in the water this weekend. But I'm going to lean toward the Browns right here. Probably not going to touch it, but like you said, they're kind of got the backs against the wall, need a big win. Going to be at home. Even if Mac Jones does play, how healthy is he going to be? I like Cleveland in this spot. I think they get the job done at home, and anything under a field goal, I think you're okay with.
Yeah, from a fantasy perspective, Chubb's been killing it all year, obviously. So you're obviously going to be starting him here. But Ramondre Stevenson's been coming on pretty hard here lately, and look to see him start doing some more things there in New England.
Yeah, because Damian Harris is out for the coming week. So Ramondre Stevenson going to be getting all the carries and stuff. So yeah, he could be a big pickup.
Yeah. Also, David Njoku has been coming on real strong lately as well.
Absolutely.
And they need that running game to have their offense work because they don't have the receivers to be a pass-happy team.
They definitely have to scheme off that run game. If you don't have that as a threat, if you're not able to utilize that, if you're not able to use some misdirection and a couple wide receiver end arounds and things like that to keep that defense honest, then they will have a tough time, whether it's Bailey Zappe or Mac Jones back there at quarterback. And for the Browns, Jacoby Brissett now, is it 3 straight games or maybe 3 out of the last 4 games? Has had a bad interception in crunch time. Like not like, oh, he wasn't able to convert. It's like, no, they would have been in field goal range or been able to do something, but he just throws a bad interception.
Yeah, one of them was on the goal line, about to score and stuff. Yeah, he has been not really performing in the big spots right there, kind of shooting himself in the foot or shooting his whole team in the foot, I guess.
Yeah, it's been rough to watch, but Deshaun Watson is back in the building for the Browns. So I guess we'll have to wait till that week 12 matchup. Is that the one with Houston?
Yeah.
We'll see what the Browns record is by that time.
That's going to be a different offense when he gets back too, man. They might really be. I mean, they don't look bad on offense right now with Jacoby Brissett. I can only imagine Deshaun Watson makes it that much better.
I imagine Mari Cooper's praying for that week 12 to come on. So now we go to the New York Jets, the 3-2 Jets. The 3-2 Jets against the 3-2 Green Bay Packers, coming off a loss to the Giants in London.
Yeah, Packers favored by 7 at home. Some lines are up to 7 and a hook. Slight lean by the public to the Jets. The total of 45.5. So they're basically predicting something like 26-19. Most of that seems about right. I mean, it depends on how much you believe in Zach Wilson. At times, he looked good last week. I mean, they put up a big number on Miami. Now, some of that was due to Miami being on their 3rd quarterback, but and a lot of it came late. But so this will be a good test to see how much has Wilson progressed. Obviously, the Packers need to bounce back after that debacle in London against the Giants. Though somebody in the chat told me that apparently the punter for the Giants got left behind in London. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I'm gonna lean toward the under in this one, man. I don't think either one of these offenses look great at times. The defenses can play well enough to keep this game close, and the Jets have looked pretty respectable. And the Packers, they just don't have any weapons at wide receiver. Aaron Rodgers has got to be so frustrated, man, because he can't find anybody that he can just depend on in clutch situations. And they're not giving A.J. Dillon the ball enough. He's only getting touched 6-8 times a game, and that guy he can grind it out and give you some yardage in the running game. So I'm going to lean toward under 45.5 right here. I don't think these offenses get over that total.
I think fans and commentators alike have both been calling for the Green Bay Packers to run the ball a lot more, whether it's Dillon or Jones. But they seem to be committed to fixing that passing offense. They seem to be like, we've got to figure this out. We're not going to win a championship without figuring this out. We need all of these elements of the game. And so they seem to be pretty committed to figuring that out, and whether it costs them the game or not. It's hard for me, Aaron Rodgers has finished in the top 5 in quarterbacks and fantasy points every year of his career, save for last year. He was 6th, and it took a 5-touchdown game from Dak Prescott in the last week of the season to pass him by 1 point. I know that because I lost a bet to cricket for $100 for him falling out of the top 5. So I, at some point, with them being so committed and working on it so hard, I got faith in my homie there. I think Rodgers and company figure it out, and they get that passing game going.
Jets defense has been really bad on the road for under this coach the whole time, last year, this year combined.
Yeah, it's an important game for the Packers, to be sure, to bounce back after a disappointing finish to that game with the Giants. So we'll see what they do at Lambeau. Now the Jacksonville Jaguars, who played a stinker of a game. I think they disappointed some people after the first couple weeks of the season, seeing the Jacksonville Jaguars roll. Not all that impressive last week, but they're going to another team that hasn't looked that impressive in the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, Colts are favored by 2 at home. Money's pretty much evenly split on the tickets. Pretty close on the money line. Total of 42, so they're basically predicting a 22-20 score. That's interesting because what it really suggests is that Vegas is not yet sold on Trevor Lawrence under Peterson, that they see the games against the Colts in Jacksonville and the Chargers game as less reflective of their current capabilities than that debacle against the Texans at home last week. I don't have a strong lean on the game. I mean, it's an interesting low. That low total says if you're betting the under, you're betting against Lawrence and you're betting against Matt Ryan. If you think either one of those guys is going to put up good numbers this year, then that total's a little low.
Yeah, I'm leaning toward Jacksonville in this one, man. They're 13-2-1 against the spread in the last 16 meetings in this series, and 5-1-1 in the last 7 meetings in Indianapolis. They really whipped them down in Jacksonville. I know Indianapolis has not fared well down there as of late, but the underdog in this series is 6-0 against the spread in the last 6 meetings. I just like Jacksonville right here. I mean, I wouldn't even mind. I'm not mad at sprinkling some money on the money line right here because I think the Jaguars are going to go to Indianapolis and get the job done.
Yeah, I agree. I think Kirk and Jacksonville are going to have a bounce back game here, especially from a fantasy perspective. I look for Kirk to have a big game there in Indianapolis. I also think Etienne's going to start running the ball quite a bit more and getting some more of his due that was probably supposed to happen more towards the earlier season.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about how you feel about that running back situation. You got James Robinson and Etienne. I feel like you're kind of gambling each week on which one you want to start.
You kind of are, but I look for him to win that battle and start winning more out and it being more lopsided to the Etienne favor.
Yeah, he seems like more of a pass catching back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you're in a PPR league, the upside on Etienne's really big because I just think he's obviously very skilled and very useful and is going to be able to catch more passes like that. And you're right. I wouldn't be surprised, especially in a couple weeks, if Robinson does get a little dinged up anyway, just because he is doing the bulk of the heavy carrying. Correct. So wouldn't be surprised if all of a sudden Etienne gets a big workload boost. Next game, the Minnesota Vikings, and this is a 1:00 game. You got to keep that in mind. We're talking about Minnesota Vikings. A 1:00 game. Minnesota Vikings travel down to Miami. No word if they'll have their quarterback back yet. Who knows what their quarterback situation is? Because the rule that the NFL put in place because of what happened at Tua, they lost Teddy Bridgewater for the entirety of the game over nothing. So.
Yeah, it's going to be – I mean, the line clearly reflects the belief in Vegas that neither one of them may be available because the Vikings travel to Miami favored by 3.5 on the road. Tickets are pretty evenly split, both on the money line and on the spread. Total of 45.5, so they're basically predicting something like a 24 Minnesota, 21, give or take, Dolphins. I would lean towards the home dog, obviously with the X factor of not knowing if it's going to be the third string QB again. It didn't look that great last week against the Jets. So that's the caveat. You might wait until later in the week. But if you think either Bridgewater or Tua is going to play, then you probably want to grab this line earlier rather than later because it won't be this big at game time if either one of them is in.
Yeah, I can't touch this game. I don't think Tua is going to play. I think they've already kind of stirred up a hornet's nest with the way they treated that before, and Bridgewater the same way. Any concussion stuff, I think they're going to be very careful with. And so you don't know what you're going to get out of this offense, man. So I just can't really have a lean in this. There's too many question marks up there. I just don't know what I'm going to get.
Fantasy wise, I think, your only surprise here might be Raheem Mostert, him being a borderline RB1. Otherwise, I mean, I think, clearly Cook is a must start. Clearly Hill and Waddle, even though banged up, they're must starts. So yeah, I mean, those guys you're going to start no matter what. The only surprise might be the Raheem Mostert.
Yeah, I mean, I love seeing Mostert play well. He's a Purdue guy. So, and he came in the league with the Niners, right? I think he had a couple good season with the Niners. And yeah, it seems like Miami, and this is not just this year thing. There are some running backs that just come in and do play well in that system. Now there's some other running backs like Lamar Miller when he was there. I felt like he averaged like 2.8 yards a carry, but it's good to see Mostert playing well. I like that guy. That game is going to be highly dependent, watchability-wise and betting-wise, going to be who is playing quarterback. And the fact that everybody is now freaking out because of this Tua stuff, overreacting, is going to cause more things like this. And we're going to have at some point this season, it's going to be one of like a big star that there's a little bit of a question whether he got dinged up or not, and he's going to get pulled for the entire game. You're going to lose Aaron Rodgers or something halfway through the first quarter, and all the people that were like preaching for this are going to be really upset that the NFL would do something like that, in all likelihood. Another game at 1 p.m., we do have the Cincinnati Bengals coming off that rough last-second loss to the Ravens, heading down to New Orleans. And I think Andy Dalton's still going to be playing quarterback at that time.
There's talk that Winston will be back. It'll be interesting that they may have everybody back, but it's still up in the air. So to me, I do think Winston is better than the red rifleman there. But I mean, the line kind of reflects the idea that either there's a lot of confidence in the Bengals or lack of confidence in the Saints, because the Saints are home underdogs, 1.5 to 2 point underdogs, total of 43. They're basically predicting Cincinnati wins by something like 23 to 21, somewhere in that neighborhood. 84% of the tickets are on the Bengals, evenly split otherwise on the total. 90% of the money lines on the Bengals. To be honest, just those public odds, and it's the Saints playing at home, and the Saints have outperformed Vegas's expectations in back-to-back weeks since the Panthers lost, with a lot of backups playing. Now some of their starters may be back. I kind of lean the Saints in this one.
Yeah, this is I'm going to lean toward the Bengals, but I'm just kind of leery about it because you don't know what you're going to get with the quarterback. If Jameis Winston's going to be back, if not, you're going to get Taysom Hill, which is kind of a fantasy point we can make. The ESPN has Taysom Hill listed as a tight end, so you can actually put him in at tight end and have him playing quarterback and pick up a lot of extra points there if he has a big game like he did last week. But I got to lean toward the Bengals here, but that line just looks funny to me. And like you said, the public money all over the Bengals kind of scares me too. So I'll probably stay away from this one. But if I got to lean, it's to the Bengals.
Yeah, I think with the Saints still, kind of being unsure about who's going to be back and who's not, and the kind of that banged up offense. I mean, Olave, Michael Thomas, even Kamara all have injuries this year to kind of like minimize their contributions. But if everybody is back, I'd probably recommend sitting Michael Thomas and starting Chris Olave. I think he's going to have the better hand tomorrow.
Well, he's kind of in concussion protocol too.
Yeah, he may not start. I'm saying if everybody's back.
Right.
Yeah. He took probably the biggest, he had that one replay. He went completely limp after he got slammed to the ground there. That was a rough one.
Yeah, those lights were on, but nobody was home in that one.
And I think they overturned that play too. He got a touchdown on that, right?
Honestly, I don't know if they overturned it or not. I'm not positive. I don't think so, because I'm pretty sure I had the same game parlay with him at anytime touchdown, and I don't think it hit. So
there you go. Next game, another 1 p.m. The Ravens going to the Giants. The 4-1 Giants facing the Ravens.
Obviously Vegas doesn't have a lot of respect for that 4-1 record. Ravens on the road, favored by 6 in New York, in Gotham. The money is leaning towards the Ravens, both on the points and on the money line. Total of 45, so they're like a 26-20, 25-19 kind of projected score. Interesting. I mean, the Ravens had to sort of eke out the win against the Bengals. Got a little bit lucky in some plays. Bengals managed not to score from 4th and goal at the half-yard line. If I lean any direction, I'd have to lean towards the Giants in this one, even though I'm not a big fan of Danny Dimes.
Yeah, man, this is my pick of the week for the NFL. I'm going with the Giants +6 right here. I love the Baltimore Ravens, have all year, but I love Brian Daboll, and I love what they're doing. Saquon, #1 running back in fantasy right now. Just they look good, man. I don't see how they're getting almost a touchdown at home. If it gets up 6.5, buy the hookup. But I like the Giants right here, and I'm not even mad sprinkling money on the money line. So yeah, my pick of the week for the NFL is the Giants +6 at home.
I just can't see it. The Giants being this good, it doesn't make sense to me. There's got to be a fallback somewhere, and I think it starts this week against a good Ravens team. Lamar Jackson is still Lamar Jackson, so yeah, I'm leaning towards the Ravens.
There you go. Yeah, and now a game that I think is interesting because we got the Buccaneers who have had a couple home games in a row. They've been playing. They lost some games. They also got this Atlanta game. Now they're going to go on the road to Pittsburgh. But I don't know if it's a Pittsburgh team that anybody is scared of right now because the Steelers with Kenny Pickett at quarterback do not look very dangerous.
Yeah, the Bills obviously made them look bad. Big spread for Pittsburgh. So, and partially Tom Brady's had good success against Pittsburgh and Mike Tomlin. But Tampa Bay comes in favored by 8.5 at Pittsburgh, and the money's pouring in on Tampa. About 3/4 of the tickets. The public's on the Buccaneers side. I think they've fixed things and lack of confidence in the Steelers after a couple of bad back-to-back losses. Total at 44. So similar lack of confidence, obviously, in Kenny Pickett because they're basically predicting something like a 26-18 kind of score. Not a lot of public action one way or the other on the total. If I were to go any direction, if you really think Brady's fully back, maybe the over. But I would actually lean the Steelers at home with a bounce back game for Kenny Pickett. Pride on the line. Got embarrassed last week. 8.5 is a lot of points playing at home. It's not like Tampa's consistently lit up the scoreboard this year. I might lean actually towards the Steelers, to the black and gold.
Yeah, I think in this one, I think the bet I would take in this one, I might take the Buccaneers in the first half. You probably will get them for less than a touchdown. They've shown the kind of like last week, get up 21-0, and then wind up letting the Falcons back in and almost, should have, if not for a terrible, terrible roughing the passer penalty. The Falcons should have had a chance to win that game right there. But they kind of come out hot, man. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what I'm going to get for Kenny Pickett, and I don't have a strong lean in this. But if I did, I'm liking the Buccaneers in the first half because you'll get them under a touchdown, and I could see them being ahead by a touchdown or more at halftime.
The one positive note from Pickett that I see is I think that Bob's early prediction of the year, one of his booms, George Pickens, will start to come on now.
Yeah, he showed flashes last week. So, that's somebody that was ranked really low in the preseason fantasy ratings. Followed him since high school. He had a lot of injuries at Georgia that derailed a lot of stuff. But he's an elite natural NFL receiver. And from watching some of the tape, I was more impressed with Kenny Pickett than I thought, and that the score would reflect. So I was like, there's maybe some potential there. So we'll find out pretty quick. Or maybe they'll be crying for Trubisky.
My man Mitch, all right? My man Mitch Trubisky is not good, but I do think it's a better option than Kenny Pickett at this point.
That's brutal. That's brutal.
Not if you're George Pickens.
That's fair.
That's probably true. Yet now, hold on. George Pickens had like the catch of a lifetime with Mitch Trubisky as his quarterback.
That's true. That's
all right.
It's because it was a really badly thrown ball.
It's because it was so badly thrown. You don't get opportunities to shine like that. Someone going right to your chest. All right. So that's why you got to showcase that because of Mitch Trubisky. Next game, finally onto the 4:00 games. The Carolina Panthers, with no Matt Rule, will be facing the LA Rams.
And maybe, I don't know who their quarterback's going to be, because the talk is that Mayfield may be out. Sam Darnold's already out. Matt Corral, their Ole Miss draft pick, he's out. So are they going to bring back Cam Newton? But and that's why the line is what it is. Rams favored by 10, despite blowing that game against the Cowboys last week. But 2/3 of the bets are actually on the Panthers. So maybe that's people that are doubting the Rams more than have confidence in the Panthers, or think first first game under a new coach. Maybe there's some inspiration. We'll see. Low total 41. So that, you're basically talking about 25 to 15. I mean, but Carolina struggled. I had their total of 16 last week. They didn't get over that. With if Baker Mayfield can't play, I don't know who they're going to have out there throwing the ball. I would probably lean the Rams, but that's a lot of points in this kind of situation with some unknowns.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Rams right here. Like you said, interim head coach, quarterback questions, East Coast to West Coast travel, a lot of things going on there for the Panthers. I like the Rams in this spot. I mean, it's weird. I'm probably not going to touch it, but it just seems. I mean, I just don't see. I mean, I know the Rams have played pretty bad, but the Panthers have played worse. And now a lot of their playmakers are kind of banged up or not there, and you lost your head coach. So how are you going to respond to that? Are it's just a weird situation. There's too many question marks in this game to really jump on anything. But I'm with you. If I got to lean, I'm going toward the Rams.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I still hate the running games there in LA, but I definitely lean Rams here. With the lack of knowledge on the quarterback, you might want to think about replacing DJ Moore in fantasy, finding someone else to kind of replace him. He may not be getting very many points if he's got a nobody throwing to him.
How is McCaffrey done this year in fantasy?
He's about number 4. As far
as that guy still does. So they suck, but he's still good in fantasy.
As long as he's healthy, he will get his fantasy points. Period.
That's impressive.
That's the only problem, though. I mean, they're going to have to give him the ball all the time, especially if a quarterback.
And then you're really risking his health. Yeah.
I hold my breath every time he carries the ball.
He is so freaking talented, and he's tough as hell, but he is not built to be doing that. He doesn't have the extra weight on him for those tackles. Now he's ripped, he's shredded, but he doesn't have any like extra on him anywhere.
He's not Derrick Henry.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know how much longer he's gonna. I don't know how much longer he's gonna be in the NFL.
He needs to get traded, man.
I think you're looking not because I just think he's going to get banged up repeatedly. So I think he might be a guy when he's 31 who ends up stepping away, even if he's got some left in the tank.
I mean, average running back career is only 6 years in the NFL, modern NFL. And there's not many guys that have lasted long. That's a small group in the modern NFL.
Well, what if the Chiefs could sell out to get McCaffrey, man? What could he do in that offense?
I'll just say he would be a great fit in that offense.
Blue-eyed Scorpio wants the Broncos to get Christian McCaffrey. I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do. Better than Melvin Gordon fumbling inside the 5-yard line for you. But yes. Now, the Arizona Cardinals, I don't think it's a Call of Duty weekend for Kyler Murray, so maybe he'll play better this week. But they are playing what the best offense right now in football, the Seattle Seahawks at home.
That is so wild. So Arizona's favored.
Most accurate.
Despite all these big numbers Seattle's put up at Detroit and at New Orleans back-to-back weeks, Arizona comes in as almost a field goal favorite, about 2.5. Depending on where you get it, money's evenly split on this one. Nobody knows which side to bet publicly. In fact, it's about as evenly bet a game on every level: money line, points, total of any game in NFL or college that I've seen this week. Total of 50.5. So they're respecting that Seattle offense or disrespecting the Seattle defense, depending on how you see it. It's not like Kyler Murray has been very consistent offensively at putting up the numbers he put up in the first half of last year. But basically, they're looking at something like a 27-24 kind of projected game. That seems a little high to me for Arizona, though Seattle, again, has put up, let Detroit put up a lot of points, let backups at New Orleans put up a lot of points. But, it's not exactly Pete Carroll's classic, the boom defense. But that does still strike me as high without DeAndre Hopkins back, given Arizona's not shown explosive offensive capability hardly at all outside of a fourth quarter against the Raiders. So I probably don't have a lean on the game other than maybe, the Arizona team total. If it gets to 27.5, 28, something like that, that might be a good bet.
Yeah, I'm all over in this one, man. Geno Smith is playing some great football. I think he's about number 6 quarterback in fantasy right now, average about 20 points a week.
That's great. Who had Geno Smith over Russell Wilson to start their fantasy?
Right. And I mean, the Cardinals, like I said, the Seahawks defenses look equally as bad as, their offense looks so good. Their defenses look terrible against some very lesser caliber opponents than Kyler Murray and company. They got some questions at running back. James Conner's banged up. Darrell Williams banged up. But Rondell Moore's back, so I think they can put some points up there. I mean, the Cardinals are capable of scoring some points. Zach Ertz having a great season at tight end. So yeah, I'm all over going over 50.5 right here, and I'm all over that, man. I really do like that number.
Yeah, if you were going to gamble me before this season started that Geno Smith was going to be a top 10 fantasy quarterback option and be completing almost 75% of his passes, I'd have lost everything in my wallet and then some. It's kind of absurd watching that go down. I think Arizona's a week early. Of course, they're going to get Hopkins back next week. So I look forward to seeing what happens with that Arizona team once he comes back.
Yeah, that'll change that offense for sure.
100% will. Once you have a guy that you need to dedicate more than one person to, like DeAndre Hopkins, it's going to open him up just like it did last year before he ended up getting hurt. I think we will see a different Arizona offense. But until then, I don't see any reason to think that it's going to be any different than what it has been for the Cardinals, which is inconsistent. But yeah, DeAndre is going to be a big deal for them. And now, like we talked about before, the game of the century of the week, Bills at Chiefs.
Yeah, a lot of respect for the Bills. I've made some money shorting them, got crushed some other times shorting them. They're favored by 2.5. It's itching towards a field goal on the road in Kansas City. 2/3 of the bets, though, the public's betting that Kansas City will win again at home, is on Kansas City, including the money line and the points. High total, 54, may not be high enough given the history of this series of late and given last couple of games against involving Kansas City. So they're basically projecting something like a 28 Buffalo, 26 Kansas City game. I lean Kansas City, but it's how much punishment do I want to get for betting against the Buffalo Bills?
Well, yeah, last time these two teams met, it literally caused the NFL to change the overtime rules in the playoffs. So, I mean, it's going to be an exciting game to watch, but I'm all over the Chiefs on the money line right here. When the Bills have looked vulnerable, it has been on the road against better teams in Miami, and, they should have lost that game in Baltimore. But the Chiefs, who I think have, obviously have the ability and talent to be better than both of those squads. I'm all over the Chiefs on the money line here. I can't believe that the Bills are favored on the road right here. It's just hard to bet against Patty Mahomes and Arrowhead.
Yeah, 3.5 at home, plus 3.5 at home, and you're Patrick Mahomes. I don't get it. I look for the Chiefs, and I think Patrick Mahomes is like 7-0-1 against the spread when in this position, and 6-2 straight up on the money line. So I'm looking for Mahomes to do what Mahomes does.
Who's been the best fantasy performer for the Chiefs in their new receiving core?
Oh, Travis Kelce.
Oh, yeah, still Kelce.
Well, for tight ends for sure, but what about actual wide receivers?
Valdez-Scantling's look good.
Yeah, he's their number one guy for the moment.
It's just
because it seems like it varies by week.
Yeah, it's just too much of a gamble. It's too much of a gamble with all those guys. You never know.
Sky Moore's been my biggest disappointment on that team, though.
That's true. Yeah, it hasn't really made much of a headway. So the super chat question about the history of first-time coaches covering against the spread. That's true last time I looked at it in terms of the Rams. The logic would be that that's overvalued, that the program is considered bad, and that's why the first-time coach is coaching, and coach was fired mid-season. I'm not sure that fits quite with Matt Rule. The reality was he never got a quarterback that fit. Some of that may be on him, some of that may be others, but I didn't get the sense that it wasn't like an Urban Meyer situation where the whole locker room couldn't wait for him to be gone. But usually that there's a rallying effect. Also, the first-time coach, wants to prove himself, and it's a great opportunity, so he puts a lot into it. So there can be a motivational edge. The market can misprice it. I mean, it is a double-digit spread, but that's my so that I think you could use it to bet the Panthers in that game. I don't think it's as applicable as it has been in past circumstances.
Yeah, you kind of have the double effect of, well, obviously it's really chaotic and disorganized and all this stuff, so Vegas is going to be worried about it. But then also, like you said, you now have a group of guys who the head coach just got fired because of the way that they've performed. They have a lot of pride on the line where, hey, let's go out and show these guys that we're not the fucking worst team in the world. Let's go show them what we can do. So, which is something it's not easy to predict for when you're handicapping games, that's for sure. But yeah, I think everybody should be excited. This game is going to be, I think it's going to deliver. A lot of offense, and I'm excited for it for sure. Now the Sunday night game, the 4-1 Dallas Cowboys. I don't think Dak will be back, even though he's out there. He's telling the press, "Oh, it's good, guys. Look at me throw out here. Hey, ask my wide receivers. They'll tell you how hard I'm throwing the ball. I'm ready to come back." But as of right now, still Cooper Rush, as far as we know, headed to the 5-0 Eagles. This is a good game.
Oh yeah, it's the Sunday night game. Everything of division rivalry. Eagles favored by 6. 2/3 of the tickets, though, are on the Cowboys, given the incredible spread record they've had under Cooper Rush. Even the money line bets are coming in as, even though Cowboys are more than 2-1 on the money line, most of the money is still coming in on the Cowboys. And slightly leans on the over because it's a relatively low total at 42. I mean, they're basically predicting something like 24-17 or 23-17, somewhere right around that neighborhood, 24-18. Which is interesting. It's whether it's respect for the Eagles at home or not complete confidence by Vegas and Cooper Rush. The Vegas has a different view of this game than the betting public does. We'll see if they're right. I mean, the Eagles have just not shown many weaknesses. Probably should have lost to Arizona in that game where Arizona missed a field goal at the end, but that's about it. I mean, the Eagles have just continuously outperformed my expectations for them. And, as the standing undefeated team in the NFC East, probably tough to bet against them in this spot would be my view.
Yeah, I'm on the Eagles right here, man. That defense look too good. I know Cooper Rush he's still undefeated as a starting quarterback. I can't figure out why they're trying to rush Dak back so quickly because this guy has overperformed his expectations, exponentially. But this Philadelphia Eagles team is really good, man. They have a great defense. They got a good leader at the quarterback position, got a lot of weapons around him. I just really like this team. I just, it's a division game, and the Cowboys have kind of dominated this series from a gambling standpoint of late. But this is a spot I like the Eagles in, man. Anything under a touchdown, I'm okay with taking the Eagles.
Yeah, I'm liking the Eagles. I mean, they're 5th in this, 8th in this, whatever. They're number 1 in the NFL in winning. And that's what's important to me right now. I really like looking at Miles Sanders, too. He's like 4th overall in the NFL in rushing yards, like 13th in fantasy points for running backs, quietly, sneakily having a fantastic season.
How has A.J. Brown done with the Eagles?
Oh, fantastic. He's gone probably above what they even thought he was going to do. If they thought he was going to do anything what he was doing in Tennessee, he's done more than that there. He's been pretty incredible.
Well, he finally got a quarterback.
Correct. That's me.
And then we do have the Monday night game. Once again, the Broncos are playing in prime time. This is what, 4 out of the first 6 games for them will be in prime time. So Broncos heading to LA to face the Chargers.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll still be more Broncos fans there and for the quote unquote LA Chargers than there will be Chargers fans. So I don't know how much of a home game it is, but the Chargers are favored by 5. They had a lot of talk about Russell Wilson blowing the game. Unhappy Broncos fans made it clear during the game with their boos. So a total of 45.5. So they're basically predicting a 25-20 Chargers over Broncos game. And this will be my free bet of the week. The Broncos catching 5 points. I think Russell Wilson bounces back in the fake LA Chargers. And I don't know if he'll pull up a win, but I like him catching points in this situation.
I'm going to have to go against you in this one. I like the Chargers right here at home. Russell Wilson a little banged up. I think he's going to play and all that, but just haven't looked great. I mean, they've played some of the worst NFL football games I've ever seen this year. But the Chargers 4-1 against the spread their last 5 games overall, and the home team is 5-0 against the spread in the last 5 meetings of this series. And I'm okay with anything under a touchdown right here. I really am. I got too many questions for that Broncos offense, the coaching staff, so many things, like I said, injuries and different stuff like that. Can Melvin Gordon hold on to the football? I'm more sold on this Chargers team right here. Probably not going to touch it, but I think anything under a touchdown, you're probably okay with the Chargers right here.
I think Austin Eckler had a slow start, but he's reminded people as of late, especially this last week, of the 35-point output, who he is. Interesting running back dynamic there in Denver is now Melvin Gordon's going to be the starter. So you want to look at Mike Boone picking him up as a RB3 or flex position because they're going to run that 2 running back system there in Denver. But I like LA.
Yeah, I think that the Broncos, I don't know what's going on with Russell Wilson with this injury. You know, they say he's been dealing with it all year. It kind of seems fishy, you know, right after all of this public backlash towards Russell Wilson, be like, oh, by the way, he's hurting. It's almost like, wow, look at the entire locker room staring at your quarterback who's he's failed the first 5 games, and he's like, oh man, my shoulder, man. Yeah, I think something's wrong. You know what I mean? It just that's the vibes I get from this Russell Wilson injury right now. So I don't know, but Russell Wilson is getting called out for being fake as fuck, which I love. I love that it's led to a lot of that because I've thought the dude's been fake for a really long time. But the game, hey, Chargers, they came through last week in a game they probably should not have won because of some decisions they made. That decision to go for it on like your own 40-yard line or whatever it was, that should have cost them the game. But it didn't because Jacoby Brissett went all Jacoby Brissett.
And I didn't understand why he did that, but me and Cody were talking about it, and apparently he's like 7-0 in games where he does something really unconventional. Like it worked out for him last week. He got bailed out by the Cade York, but I couldn't understand for the life of me why he would do something like that.
They go for it a lot, and you know when you look at the numbers will probably say go ahead and do it. You know,
there's a minute left in the game. I mean, punt it, make them drive the length of the field. I don't. You know, I've seen some things this last weekend that have completely changed everything I think about football that I've seen my whole life because the whole analytics has taken over, and it's just kind of crazy to me in that spot.
Are they about ready for that two QB system?
That's right.
Well, I think so. I can understand that one. I think it's not a move I would make in that situation, but I would imagine that analytics would play out. It's probably like 57% of the time or what you wit. Like that's probably actual numbers behind doing that decision. Did Josh McDaniel go for 2-1? Like you had a couple 2-point decisions in those games that were, you know, a little bit interesting. That's the one I'm not sure where you get those numbers from.
I just don't know what you gain from that by going for 2 right there. If you're Josh McDaniels, I mean, even you still got Patrick Mahomes on the other side. There's almost 5 minutes left in the game. I can't understand for the life of me why you would not tie the game up and then play from there. I mean, you'd have nothing to lose by tying the game up. And yeah, I just don't get it.
100%. I didn't think there was enough to gain from doing that to make it justify it. And you're still giving the ball to Patrick Mahomes with 4 minutes left. You know he's going to have plenty of time. You should assume that they're going to go down there and score. Like
Right.
that's what your assumption should be. Your assumption in that moment should be that 1 point really doesn't matter because you're going to have to go back and score again anyway.
And Matthew Wright had already made like a 58 or 59-yard field goal, you know, filling in for Harrison Butker. So I mean, it's like the kicker is very capable too. I don't understand that right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, those are all of the NFL games. I did see, of course, they disappeared on me. Here we go. We'd have a couple questions as well, a couple comments on the NFL stuff. Taker for $2 says Raiders defensive coordinator Travis Kelce. Never heard of him. Certainly seemed like that way on the goal line. They did a decent job of covering up the rest of the night, but on the goal line, Travis Kelce went uncovered sometimes. I do not understand how you do that. Not a banned account for $2. Which teams are Alex Jones' favorites to watch?
I don't think he follows much these days. When I talked to him about it, he used to play back in the day himself, but in high school football. But he's kind of checked out from most sports these days.
I would imagine that's the way it is for a lot of people out right now, actually. And thank you to Resef. Robert already addressed it, but the $5 super chat, isn't there some crazy stat where the team that replaces their head coach almost always wins? Certainly does exist there. Now we got to move. We got to move on to college. And the college game, obviously, that everyone's going to be talking about, especially these gentlemen right here. They're one they're excited for. Tennessee and Alabama.
You know, the thing with this game is that what we talked about on Monday, it all does depend on the quarterback. There's a massive drop off from Bryce Young to the backup, unlike past years at Alabama. If Bryce Young plays, I would lean Alabama in the game. The talent differential is massive. So Tennessee is a scheme team, so they scheme to get the best out of the talent they have. But they don't have a bunch of NFL guys on either side of the ball. Alabama does. Alabama does all the way into the 2 deep. So, like, if I was setting the line, if I knew Bryce Young was going to play, I would favor Alabama by 17. The other aspect of this is, unfortunately, this series has not been close in a long time. Alabama, it's not one of those places Alabama struggles. In fact, it's been a streaky series throughout its entire history between Alabama and Tennessee. There's a great meme that goes around all the way back. There's a guy who used to write all the reasons he hated the state of Alabama, and he would add them up each year for when it was the third Saturday in October when the game is played. I think he's up to like 527, and it's all these random things over like 50 years of stuff he hates about the state of Alabama. And if Tennessee wins, the chant they do is, "I don't give a damn about the whole state of Alabama, whole state of Alabama." Tennessee fans are pumped. ESPN is there. Crowd is going to be 100,000 plus. The Josh Heupel's got that offense clicking. Did they win and whooped up on LSU? Alabama limped out of playing A&M at home with their backup quarterback Haynes King, who's just not very good, and there were one bad play call, or from Jimbo Fisher, or they actually lose that game outright. But that all sets up well for Alabama. Alabama got their scare. Tennessee kind of didn't get their scare. And so I look at the public's overwhelmingly on Tennessee. Generally, public dogs don't do well against the spread. So it's around 7.5. If you think Bryce Young is going to play and you like Alabama, get it now, because once he's announced, he'll probably go up to 9.5. There's a lot of sharp money out here in Vegas on Bama on that. They just think it's a mismatch. The Tennessee's big defensive weakness is their secondary. Tennessee's got their leading safeties got arrested for a felony charge on Sunday, McCullough. So that's their best defensive back. Heupel said he wasn't sure if he was going to play. If he was committed, a good sign of a good recruiting program is they're recruiting criminals. If you're not recruiting criminals, you're really not trying. But that gave me some encouragement there. But
you gotta recruit the guys that don't get caught by the cops. That just means they're that fast. They got good 40 times.
Like Aaron Hernandez at Florida, right? He didn't get caught until years later. So you can be a gangster and a criminal, just have some friendly police. Apparently they don't have enough friendly police there in Knoxville, unfortunately, it sounds like. But yeah, so I just think matchup wise, if Bryce Young with those receivers against maybe even a missing players in a weak secondary already, and Tennessee against, I think Hooker's going to have to deal with Will Anderson all game. I just don't like the matchup. So I would lean Alabama if I took a side in this game, even though I would love to see Tennessee upset them, of course.
Yeah. I can't give you a pick in this one because the football gods will punish me if I go the way that I want to go. So I will be there. It's going to be exciting. Get to mark. I have never seen a college game day, so get to mark that off the bucket list. It's going to be pretty cool. I will say that I hope Bryce Young does play, because if we do find a way to pull that W out, I don't want to hear any of these excuses from all these Alabama fans. The shit I've been having to listen to for the last 2 decades. I don't want to hear it. We get the W. We got the W, and I hope Bryce Young is on the field for us to do it.
Unfortunately for you, I think if Bryce Young is on the field, you're not going to be able to get the W. I think your best chance of getting that W is with him off the field. I think that's a legit chance for Tennessee to upset them. But I don't mind the points there, even with Bryce Young on the field, especially as they continue. I'd wait, because I think, as Bob said, that'll grow once it's announced he's starting. And if that climbs closer to 10.5, I'd really like taking Tennessee there.
And even if Bryce Young does play, I mean, how close to 100% is he? You gotta ask that too.
That's true.
Yep. And double-digit underdogs on national TV do have a good record of covering. If it got over 10.
I do think that, just with all things considered, you want Bryce Young to be playing, because what you don't want is for Alabama to be like a one-loss team, and that one loss is when Bryce wasn't playing, and then you try to justify that and seeding and everything.
Yeah.
Likelihood, even if they do lose this game, it could be the difference. Like, this game theoretically coon be the difference depending on how Georgia plays, depending on how Tennessee plays the rest of the year. So massive game. There's no doubt about that.
If we do get them, I'm going to become a huge Ole Miss fan, because I want them to beat Alabama. So if we were to get by Georgia, we don't have to see them again in the SEC title game. Hey, you don't want to play that team twice if you got them the first time.
That's true. Now, next game, we're going to the Big Ten. We're going to the Big Ten for the big matchup, Penn State versus Michigan.
This is an interesting line, because and it's a reflection of certain historical factors. So on the one hand, you have Franklin has been good in recent years since he built up his own recruits, covering against top 10 teams. By contrast, Harbaugh has a terrible spread record against top 10 teams. The flip side of that is that Penn State has had a lot of trouble when they travel to Ann Arbor. And so when you see a 7-point line, total around 51, 52, a little bit high, but it's because they don't have as much confidence in each team's defense as some past ones and a little more confidence in their offense. Michigan hasn't, they played Maryland, they played Iowa, they played Indiana, not exactly, murderer's row. Penn State at least went on the road to Purdue and went on the road to Auburn. And so Penn State's a little more proven. I think people think Michigan has a little more talent, particularly the quarterback position. I have some doubts about that. We'll see if J.J. McCarthy is good under the lights when Blake Corum can't run the ball like Penn State is likely to shut down. So I would lean towards the under, lean towards Penn State in the game just because everything about this game says old school, Big Ten, tough, physical, down to the wire kind of game. But, the history in Ann Arbor would say Michigan will roll, and that's where the public is betting currently.
Yeah, I just can't figure this Penn State team out. I can't judge much from going on the road to Auburn. I don't think it's a very good Auburn team. And then the game against Purdue's first game of the year, I think they've figured some things out since then. They've looked a lot better since then. So I can't really figure that team out. I'm going to lean toward Michigan here with anything under a touchdown just because they've been there before. I think both of these teams are slightly overrated. But anything under a touchdown right here, I like Michigan.
Yeah, Michigan's not a playoff team. I'm sorry.
No, I don't think so either.
I agree with that. But, yeah, as much as I hate going with the public, I like Michigan here too. Anything under a touchdown.
Hey, Cody, I know you had something that you had to take care of as well, so I think you need to bounce, right?
Absolutely. If y'all wouldn't mind, yeah, I will see you guys later.
Hey, no problem, man. Have a good one.
Be safe, brother.
All right, there we go. Thank you to Cody for joining us once again. And go ahead and pop him out there so we can continue to bounce. Next game, we got another Big Ten matchup, Minnesota versus Illinois.
Illinois' quarterback's going to be out for this one, so that's why the total is at 39.5. Minnesota's favored by 6.5. Minnesota, has played very well, but they lost to Purdue at home. Their only quality opponent, really, since Michigan State's fallen off the rails. Illinois' defense is legit. They went in and beat Wisconsin at Wisconsin. They played tough last week against Iowa. Almost 3/4 of the tickets are on Minnesota, and almost all the cash early is on the under. My instinct would be to lean towards Illinois. I think Illinois at home catching 6.5 points. The defense is legit. Definitely issues with Satowski coming in as the backup quarterback. And Minnesota's been solid on both sides of the ball, and they get back their really talented running back that's good in pass protection in other areas too. So I see why the line is the way it is. But you're talking about two teams that, from a talent perspective overall, are pretty darn even. So it is Tanner Morgan 7 points, or you could say, given it's a road game, 10 points better than Satowski. I'm not yet sold on that because I think Illinois has one of the best defensive coordinators in college football, been proving it since middle of last season. So I would lean towards the Fighting Illini.
Yeah, I'm all over the under on this one. It's a low total, 39.5, but you got two of the better defenses in the country right now, or have played that statistically. Minnesota through the first, I think, 3 games has only allowed like 24 points. You get Muhammad Ibrahim back. He's got 13 straight games with 100 yards rushing. But the running back, Chase, I can't think of his name right now, but let's see, Chase Brown. He's actually leading the country in rushing yards. So, you could, but they're not finishing a lot of drives off. You're seeing a lot of field goals from these teams. I think the game last year was Illinois won 14-6. So 39.5. I know it's a low total right there, especially for a college game. But these two defenses played really well. You talk about the defensive coordinator from Illinois. I like these defenses here much more than I like the offense. You're going to see some fireworks from the running game, but not enough to get it over the 39.5.
Also, early weather report reports it's going to be windy. And for those folks out there, the totals, rain and cold doesn't drive totals in the way that weather does. If it gets windy, of weather, then wind does. Wind over 15, 12, 15, 20 miles per hour, that's because you can't throw the ball anymore. And that's when totals go. Whew.
Yeah, then you get games like Josh Allen throws like 2 passes or something for the Buffalo Bills. Now a matchup in the Pac-12, which is a big one, USC versus Utah. And this is really USC's last big, real opponent until they have to play UCLA near the end of the year.
Yeah, and early on in the year, a lot of people had this game circled. They thought Utah would expose USC. Utah's been in the playoff, outside the playoff hunt, but in the big Pac-12 title hunt for a while. So, and Salt Lake City is a very tough place to play. And what we talked about early on, that USC's passing offense, Caleb Williams showing some restraint, as Oregon State showed the replicated part of what worked last year against him as a freshman at Oklahoma. All that being said, Utah doesn't have its traditional defense at all. It was misleading in the Oregon State game. They actually gave up a lot of yards per play. They played some really bad offenses. That Florida game looks even worse as Florida struggles to put good offense on the field. UCLA did whatever they wanted against them last week. This does not look like a typical Kyle Whittingham defensive dominant team. Still stopping people from too many big plays. But they're favored by 3.5. And I think right from a talent perspective, USC is a lot more talent. And performance to date perspective, I would lean towards USC in this matchup.
Yeah, this is the problem with the Pac-12, man. They beat each other up and wind up, siphoning through each other, and that's why they can never make the playoff, because some teams just play so bad on the road. I mean, USC's 2-7 against the spread in their last 9 conference games, and the home team is 8-3 against the spread in the last 11 meetings in this series. I like Utah right here. I don't know that they covered the 3.5. I could see them winning it by a field goal, close game, something like that toward the end. So maybe I'm probably not going to touch it. I don't think you get enough value with betting the money line on Utah right here, because it could obviously go either way. I think if you're going to bet a money line, I think you got to bet USC. But I got a weird feeling about this when Utah got walloped last week at UCLA. UCLA looks really good right now. But I just think the Pac-12 beats each other up. I don't think any of them are that good, and that's mostly the problem. And you see that in the road games. They just don't play as well. So I'm going to lean toward Utah plus 3.5 right here.
I'm rooting for Lincoln Riley to go undefeated and to get USC into the playoff. I think that's a really compelling story to have USC back in the college football playoff first year. So I know Oklahoma's certainly missing them right now.
Any Pac-12 team in general in the playoff would be good for them, man. They're just trying to get one in there. It doesn't matter who it is, just anybody.
Washington was the last one we had, right? I think. Right. And then they got thumped. Well.
Yeah, they got thumped.
That didn't go so well for them. But speaking of Oklahoma, that is our next game. Oklahoma looking at maybe losing 4 in a row at Kansas.
Early talk is that Gabriel will be back, and that's a big difference. So the game is at Oklahoma. It's, compared to the preseason spread, it's way down. Oklahoma favored by 9. Total at 62, 62.5, 63, in that range. Those are pretty common numbers in college football. Over 90% of the bets are on the Kansas Jayhawks. The public is so in love with the Kansas Jayhawks, even though they may have their backup QB themselves playing in this game. They've seen 3 atrocious back-to-back-to-back defensive debacles by the defensive-oriented Brent Venables Oklahoma Sooners in his first season. Starting to look more and more as USC excels under Lincoln Riley, that the weaknesses of Oklahoma defensively in past seasons was talent more so than coaching necessarily. But we'll see. But I think this is a critical. You get blown out in the Red Rivalry shootout. They now call it something. They changed the shootout name because that's impermissible. But I still call it the shootout. But 49-0, I think worst defeat since like 1945 or something like that. 3 bad back. I mean, that's after the blowout loss to TCU, after the bad home loss to Kansas State. But Dylan Gabriel was only around for the Kansas State game, in a game they outperformed him by 14 points in terms of yard per play metrics. Just certain things broke against them. So I think if he's back, they roll. The talent differential here is massive, and I just don't believe Venables will just let the team fall apart. I think Venables will get him back up and going. So I would probably lean Oklahoma in this game, even though pretty much all the public thinks it's going to be Kansas.
Yeah, I'm gonna. The biggest thing you need to monitor going into this game, if you're thinking about betting on it in any aspect, is whether Dylan Gabriel plays or not, because that is a completely different offense when he's on the field, and it's concussion type thing. So they're gonna, it's probably gonna be closer to an hour and a half, 2 hours before game time before you find for sure if he's playing. But that's a completely different offense if he's on the field. And Jason Bean comes in last week and backs up Jalen Daniels, and actually I mean, that guy started 9 games for Kansas last year. He threw some really pretty balls in that game against TCU on Saturday. So I'm going to lean toward the over right here, 62.5, because I think both of the defenses have shown the ability to give up a lot of points in spots. And if Dylan Gabriel comes back, that Oklahoma offense is a lot better. And Jason Bean has showed me the ability to be able to run that offense at Kansas too. So I can't figure out the spread. I think it's a little high, just based off what Kansas has done and what Oklahoma has done. You know, they lost three straight games for the first time since 1998. And they just don't do that. And they really got some things to fix right there. But like I said, Dylan Gabriel getting back, that's a different football team. And I look for a lot of points in this one.
There you go. Now, staying in the same state, in the same conference, Oklahoma State against TCU. TCU put a whooping on Oklahoma.
Yeah, it was, and TCU managed to hold off Kansas as they continued to make a run, even with their backup quarterback in Lawrence. So it'll be interesting. Oklahoma State went in and beat Baylor, though mostly with special teams assisting that outcome. Both these teams, good offenses, at least on paper, have had some shaky secondaries giving up big plays. So I think TCU is favored by 3.5, thereabouts. Sonny Dykes has a long history of covering the spread, but so does the mullet there in Stillwater. So this might be one of the best games in the Big 12 this year, in fact. Given where some of the other programs are. Iowa State down a little bit. Texas a little bit erratic. Obviously, Oklahoma down substantially. So it'll be interesting to watch. I probably don't have a lean on this one because I think this should be a close, toughly fought game decided by about a field goal.
Yeah,
the over's high. It's like 68.5, I think, currently. I see why they have the over. Both these defenses give up big plays. Both offenses create big plays, and it's the Big 12. But I don't know if it will necessarily be that high this time, but we'll find out.
Yeah, this is my pick of the week for college football. I'm going to take Oklahoma State plus 3.5. They have simply dominated from a gambling standpoint in conference games of late. They're 10-2-1 against the spread in their last 13 conference games. And then they are also the underdog in this series is 6-1 against the spread in the last 7 meetings. I think Oklahoma State's got a lot of firepower as well. There's going to be a lot of points in this game. Max Duggan for TCU is having a great season, man. That guy really runs that offense well. Sonny Dykes loves him. Seems like a good kid. He's just playing really good football. It's going to be an exciting game to watch, but I don't see anybody winning this game by more than a field goal, and I wouldn't be surprised if Oklahoma State was able to find a way to win at TCU.
Yeah, it should be a good game. And then we now have an ACC matchup, Clemson and Florida State. It's going to be interesting where Clemson ends out this season. For sure, with the way the college football playoff looks to be starting to play out here.
Yeah, what's fascinating about this game, so Florida State's coming off back-to-back kind of tough losses at NC State, home to Wake Forest. Clemson's coming off beating both of those same teams, Wake Forest on the road, NC State at home. And it's a night game, so obviously Doak Campbell Stadium's going to be all pumped there in Tallahassee. Last I checked, the spread is 4 points, only 4 points for Clemson. Public's hammering Clemson. So Vegas is confident in Florida State. Now, that may be because statistically, Florida State actually should have won easily both the Wake Forest and the NC State game. So if you're one of these analytics guys, you think they're due. But from a talent perspective, Clemson still has a substantial edge over Florida State. This is not Bobby Bowden's Florida State. This isn't Jimbo Fisher's Florida State. It's a decent team, but it's not an elite top 10 talent team by any stretch. So if I leaned a direction, it would lean towards Clemson with the caveat that I hate betting with the public on the road in a night game.
Yeah, I think that Clemson wears them out in this one, man. I don't know how this spread's that low. I understand Florida State trying to bounce back, but last week, man, NC State, Devin Leary goes out, and they still found a way to come back with a backup quarterback. They threw 2 passes after Devin Leary went out in the third quarter, and still were able to find a way to come back and win. And I just don't think this Florida State team has figured out how to win the close games like that yet. Wake Forest comes down to Tallahassee a couple weeks ago. It was a night game as well. And Wake Forest just they controlled that game the entire way, wound up winning it by 10, I think. Florida State just did not look great there. And, they looked good early on against NC State last week, but then just kind of fizzled out in the second half. And this Clemson team, they're just solid, man. Anything under a touchdown right here, I think you jump all over the Tigers. I just don't see any way Florida State stays in this football game.
There you go. Well, now we've got this is a non-conference matchup with a team that does not have a conference. We've got Arkansas against BYU.
So they cleared KJ Jefferson. Quarterback's going to play. So that line went from like +3 Arkansas to -1, -2 Arkansas. But they are traveling to Provo. So talent-wise, and Arkansas has got a lot of injuries. Now BYU's got some defensive injuries. They got one wide receiver back, and then he got banged up. So it's not exactly clear who's going to play out there, and that puts a real X factor around the whole game. But betting against BYU in Provo is tough. Talent-wise, Arkansas should win this game easily. Betting against BYU in Provo, though, would probably keep me away from that ticket.
Yeah, I like Arkansas in this one. If it was a night game in Provo, I would feel a little bit differently about it. It's a 3:30 kickoff. KJ Jefferson is going to be back. Like you said, from a talent perspective, Arkansas should, if you look at it on paper, Arkansas should blow the doors off. But it's always a tough place to go play when you go to BYU, and that's a good football team. They played a really tough schedule this year, man, so they know how to play in big games. But like I said, if it was a night game in Provo, I might lean toward the Cougars. But right here with KJ Jefferson playing, I like Arkansas in this spot.
There you go. Now back to the Big 12. It's hard to imagine we're still calling it the Big 12, considering there's only like 4 teams that are committed to be in there for any length of time. But West Virginia and Baylor.
Yeah, this is going to be, I think it's Thursday night game, if I recall right. So, West Virginia, the coach is on the hot seat. He really needs to win and rebound, especially, guys like Matt Rule and other guys out there. There may be incentives to fire coaches earlier than normal to get ahead of the line of potential coaching hires. So West Virginia, and Morgantown used to be a dominant place, real tough place to play, one of the great home fields. Hasn't always been that way.
Geno Smith, West Virginia Mountaineer.
Exactly. Randy Moss down the road from Marshall. So Baylor's favored by 3.5. Tickets lean Baylor's direction. Total of 54. Most of the money's coming in on the over. Basically, they're predicting something like 28, 25, somewhere in that neighborhood. That's a lot of points for Baylor. Baylor's offense not real explosive. They don't like to pass the ball much if they can avoid it. Tough front line, a little bit shaky in the secondary. We'll see if West Virginia can get JT Daniels going. If I leaned, I would probably lean the Mountaineers at home in the big night game that they really need against the Baylor team. I think is still a little overvalued. They're a solid team, but not a spectacular team. Would be my take.
Yeah, I'm going to lean with you here on this one. The Mountaineers, it might seem kind of crazy because I feel like Baylor is at least a touchdown better, from a spread standpoint type football team. That's why that spread being so low kind of scares me. And the Bears are also 1-6-1 against the spread in their last 8 games following a bye week. And the home team in this series is 4-1 against the spread in the last 5 meetings. So, I'm not even mad at maybe sprinkling a little money line on the Mountaineers right here because, like I said, they got to have it and, try to play for the coach and get him save his job. But it just looks too funny to me, man. So I'm going to lean to the Mountaineers right here.
Yeah. And then our last college game, we got the 25th ranked James Madison playing Georgia Southern.
I mean, what a great story of college football. I mean, James Madison is their first year in the FBS that come up. And here they are ranked, top 25. Can't compete for a bowl game, so every game is big. Georgia Southern has Clay Helton, who went in and cost Scott Frost his job with that performance in Lincoln. Georgia Southern has no defense, but they can throw the ball around as long as they're not just throwing picks around. James Madison has, had the Colorado State QB transfer. It's put up some really big numbers that somehow they couldn't get to work at Colorado State, but it's working at James Madison. Really good run defense. Statistically, I think it's number 1 in the country. I mean, I don't know if, that's partially schedule dependent, but that still shows performance and execution. Favored now by 12 points. It's amazing to me just that James Madison is in the top 25. That's great. First time ever they've been ranked, of course, because first time they've been at this level of college football play. So it's great to see these small programs that have built up loyal fan bases step up and really do well. I think it could be a very high scoring game. That's the totals reflective of that. I think it all depends on which Georgia Southern quarterback comes out. If the one that showed up in Lincoln comes out, this will be much closer than that double-digit score suggests. If the quarterback that was throwing picks against everybody of late, then James Madison may continue to roll, continue to be undefeated, and continue to maintain that ranked status.
Yeah, man, I'm going to lean toward the over here. These teams can put some points up. James Madison is a good football team. I just think 12.5 on the road. That's just kind of, it seems funny to me too. I'm not going to touch this game. It'll be interesting to see what the result is, but it opened at 63.5. It's already up to 66.5. So the public's all over the over. So it kind of makes me want to maybe look toward the under, but I've just seen these offenses do too much in the previous games that I don't see any way they don't get over at least 70 right here. But I mean, I don't recommend anything. Just maybe watch it as a fan. Check James Madison out for a little bit.
Yeah, they're worth it. They're a fun little program, overachieving, the best of college football.
Right.
Yeah, and I think we've had a couple of these little Sun Belt teams do some stuff. We saw App State the first couple weeks of the season. ODU beat Virginia Tech and damn near beat Virginia a few weeks after that. And even Georgia Southern. I mean, beating the shit out of Nebraska this year isn't really bragging because a lot of people have done it. But yes, it's always fun when you get to see the smaller conferences, make some noise. Now, this super chat is not from anyone I'm talking about a smaller conference, but the Greg, I think he's got a message for you, gentlemen. UCLA football greater than Tennessee football. UCLA baseball greater than Tennessee baseball. UCLA basketball greater than Tennessee basketball. Enough said.
Y'all got a lot more money than we do, man.
The basketball one is right. The rest, when you can at least get 30,000 people in the Rose Bowl for a big game, let me know. We pack out 100,000 for like UT Morton. That's a true fan base.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
But
what about baseball? You guys didn't say anything about baseball.
Well, we choked. We should have won the College World Series last year. We were one of the greatest college baseball teams ever last year, and then we choked it and didn't even make it to Omaha. But Mama said there'd be days like this.
That's right. It happens. And then it's Chewy for $5 earlier with poor choices on hiatus. I need something to watch, something like this. Is it cool if I can give a shout out to Bernie Fratto? And shout out Bernie Fratto. I think he's a Houston sports betting guy, if I remember right. So
cool. And you got to give Lovie Smith credit. I mean, this was a team that nobody thought was going to be any good, and they're hanging in there with everybody. I mean, and then they go into Jacksonville and upset Jacksonville. So credit to Lovie Smith, and it's all based on he's got that defense working again. I mean, for a while, the Lovie Smith defense wasn't working as well with the modern changes in the NFL. He's got it back, and so credit to Lovie Smith for resurrecting what should be an abysmal team.
Yeah, they are better than I think we thought they would be. That's for sure. But the NFL, Tom Brady actually was like, yeah, there's a lot of dog shit play out there. He said there's a lot of bad play in the NFL. Should kind of speaking about his team a little bit too, probably. But yeah,
exactly. Who has performed well continues to be Jacksonville State under Deion Sanders. And if you haven't watched Deion Sanders' press conference, watch it because the Eddie Robinson Jr., son of the great legend, Grambling University, Alabama State, was enraged. He said because he thought Deion was showing him up, talking smack all week and having some people run some plays at the end of the game when it was 40 seconds left and he was up by 2 scores, and how he came into the stadium and all the rest. I think it kind of sounded like bitter grapes resentfulness to the way Deion Sanders has elevated the SWAC, because a lot more people paying attention to the SWAC now than in like 50 years, thanks to Deion. And that was his point. He's like, hey, look, I promote the game. You guys sold more tickets for Alabama State than you've sold for 40 years because of how I promoted this game. So the son, of course, plays quarterback. He's on a hot list to be promoted at various coaching programs across the country because of his success at Jacksonville State. But the best part of the rant is you get to see old school Neon Deion do his if I'm not SWAC, who's SWAC? If I'm not SWAC, who's SWAC? That's just great.
Yeah, Eddie Robinson Jr. has since issued a public apology since his rant the other day. I think he might have been in the moment a little bit there. But
look, he got whooped. He wanted to beat him up. He doesn't like this. I mean, he's the son of the legend of the SWAC, right? And here's Neon Deion showing him up in front of his home crowd, right? So I get it, but it was kind of lame. His response, and it was fun watching Deion be Deion.
Absolutely,
I didn't really have too much of a problem with what Eddie Robinson did. He had to go to shake his hand. It apparently was not just a couple of things that were said. It was like
12 things
that he said during the week. He never came to talk to him before the game, even though Eddie Robinson Jr. came out on the field, made sure he was available to stand and come talk to Deion. Deion had no interest talking to him. He did wander through their own offensive practices.
Deion. So exactly. He doesn't usually shake people's hands at the beginning. He loves to run and go around the whole stadium. But what really agitated him, it's the Deion show is taking over the SWAC.
Yes.
But frankly, that's probably good for the SWAC because it's getting more eyeballs, more interest, more attention than the SWAC has gotten some decades.
And Coach Robinson doesn't strike me as the type of guy that gets really worked up over just nothing. I feel like you really got to work to get under his nerves like that.
Well, I think he interpreted everything as he's doing that deliberately. He's doing that deliberately.
That's
probably
fair.
half of it was deliberate, and the other half probably wasn't.
Right.
But he's like, I'm not going to give you an Obama hug, but I'm going to give you.
I'm not going to give you the Obama bro hug if you've been disrespecting me all week.
Yeah, exactly. And Deion's like, I'm SWAC. You're not SWAC. There's no SWAC without Deion. So it was fun to watch.
Yeah,
hey, man,
Deion
being Deion. But
one thing I wanted to ask you guys about, man, how do y'all feel about these roughing the passer penalties we've seen in the NFL? Well, I've seen two of the worst penalties I've ever seen in my life in the NFL this week, with the one with Jarrett against the Tampa Bay on Tom Brady the other day, and then the one with Chris Jones the other night where he literally takes the ball. I mean, I don't know that should have been on a video for a clinic for how to play defensive tackle, and then they call a flag. I mean, how's that guy supposed to stop from laying on top? I just don't know. They got to do something about that, right?
Yeah, he did. He put his arm out and braced himself a little bit. It's ridiculous. But when we saw the Tom Brady flag, I was like, listen, I think it's a bullshit call, and Tom Brady gets calls like that. But when you saw him got whipped like that, they are now being hypersensitive because of the Tua stuff, because of everything.
Well, I'm a Buccaneers fan, man, and I was even mad at it. I was like, I benefited from it and was still mad at the call, because it's like, there comes a time if you're gonna do that, I mean, you almost got to give the quarterbacks flags.
Hey, we're doing flag football at the Pro Bowl.
That's right.
It's only a matter of time. Sorry, offensive lineman, you're gonna be out of a job soon. I guess we'll see. But Robert, where can people go if they want to get the official picks for all of these games?
Absolutely. We put up recommended picks. They're already up this week. Over 60 picks over the English Premier League, college football, the NFL. We'll be adding more picks throughout the week. We'll be adding some Major League Baseball playoff picks as well. You can get them all at sportspicks.locals.com. $10 a month, or if you want to get a whole year package, 2 months off. The best deal. Most handicappers sell you picks for $10 a pick. And when they do give you pick packages for like $100, $200 a weekend, it's like 5 games. We give you lots of picks. You could do with them whatever you want. Add to your entertainment value. You make your own informed decisions. Add it to your guidance. We doubled our members' money last year, up over 50% this year. So if you want good picks that will give you good intel and good information, join sportspicks.locals.com.
There you go. And Cricket, good talking to you, man. Thanks for being here tonight.
Man, I appreciate you, man. Always a pleasure talking with you guys. Go Big Orange.
There you go. It's going to be a big game. It's going to be a big game. So we appreciate it, guys. Thank you to the chat. We'll be right back here at the same time next week. Also, don't forget to catch our Sports Wars Sunday streams at 11:30 Eastern, leading up to the 1 o'clock kickoffs. And then also Monday evening quarterbacks every Monday right here with myself and Robert at 7 p.m. Appreciate it, guys. We will talk to you next time.